Okay, welcome to another edition of At Viking Diff. Technical difficulties, but that's okay. We're very excited today to be joined with not only a great student, staff member, two staff members, but also our very first co-host ever, Ornella Siakam. Ornella, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
A senior at Princeton. She's going to join us for the remainder of this school year as a co-host as we continue to expand our opportunities for student voice. So Ornella, earlier today, I talked to you about two awards that we received specifically for Viking Voice. The Philo Award, which is this Midwest United States award, big award, as well as a great award called the Blue Chip Award. And if it wasn't for the great partnership we have with ICRC, Josh, thanks so much. I mean, the partnership with ICRC has really allowed us to have this great student voice, make sure that we expand opportunities for students. We have an intern right now, Cody. Cody, thanks so much for being behind the scenes again to help with production. But we're going to jump right into it. Mikai Lynn, junior, superstar student, athlete. Mikai, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
So, Mikai, I know if anybody paid attention to Greater Cincinnati or Ohio football, they would know Mikai Lynn, the name. But Ornella, what question you want to lead off with Mikai?
I'm going to start out by asking you, as a student athlete, you're first a student, as we know. So how do you keep up with, let's say, a Friday night game that's coming up and the big test that's on Friday? How do you keep up with your schoolwork as a student athlete?
Well, first, school is first, so that test has to come first. That's the first thing that's on my mind. The game isn't until 7 o'clock, so I have time to prepare for that. I have to prepare for that test the night before, so the schoolwork comes first. If you don't do the schoolwork, you can't play the game on Friday. So.
Now, Mikai, I had an opportunity to interview for another program not too long ago, and you talked a lot about the positive influence that family has had on you. Can you break that down a little bit about how, let's just be honest, your mom's not going to play when it comes academically, right?
Yes, sir.
So talk a little bit about the importance of family to you.
Family, family can it has its pros and cons. You have sometimes family can bring you down, sometimes family can bring you up. In my household, academics is number one. If you don't have that, you can't do anything. You don't have A's and B's, it's kind of hard, So my family pushes academics a lot. My mom is still in school getting her degree for nursing. So, academics are very, very big in my household.
So, Mikai, you led the Vikings this year. Let's talk a little bit of football. You led the Vikings this year to playoff berth, number 2 seed in all of Cincinnati. Had a great first round game, took it on the chin a little bit against Elder. But I got to tell you, I think we were the better team. I'm going to be honest with you. But sometimes a better team doesn't always win. We had some mistakes. Now, Mikai, you said something really interesting not too long ago to me about what you can learn from mistakes can actually help you get a lot better. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, we had two big plays that cost us the football game, and to capitalize on stuff like that, in the off season, you work on holding the football, proper technique. Technique comes with timing, but when you get it down packed, the game becomes very, very easy. So once everybody gets their technique down, discipline, focus, toughness, mental toughness, we're gonna get a ring next year.
Now, Mikai, this year was so very different. Ornella, I know, and we've talked so much about your senior and then really kind of some of the opportunities that you would have, you don't have. Mikai, how crazy would it have been on a Friday night at Pat Mancuso Field and Jake Sweeney Automotive Group Stadium? How crazy would that have been with the season we had?
Would have been crazy, Pat Mancuso Field. I had to get used to it since last year. I was prior to coming to Princeton. I was at Winton Woods. It was a good experience, but Princeton is just a better environment. Better kids, better.
Yeah, well, listen, we love having you here. And the biggest thing, as Ornella talked about, was being a student athlete first. Ornella?
Oh, to kind of carry off on what Mr. Britton was asking, how different was it to play on the field without as many fans as you would normally last year?
It's kind of like practice, you know, because not playing with, you know, all those alumni or kids from your school that you see every day. Kind of got to get used to not seeing fans. So, you know, it actually did kind of help me focus, you know, not even, you got to pay attention to the field, not the crowd. You know, you play for yourself, not the crowd. So it wasn't really a big change for me, but it was kind of weird not hearing more voices than I heard. So, you know.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's no question. We've had just about sold out stadiums in the last couple of years, and we know that Mikai, you come back with a lot of talented underclassmen. Your senior class is going to be super strong. But the best thing about this team, I think, is the discipline. You talked about that before, Mikai.
The discipline piece was a big part this year. You know, we had to build discipline though. Back in, I want to say like June, July, we still struggle with, you know, the playing, the talking, looking at simple stuff like looking at coach when he's talking to you, or doing this the certain amount of distance that it's supposed to be. So we once we got into that first game, that's when we had to figure it out. That's when we all knew we were hungry, we wanted it. So that kind of helped us. Discipline was a big piece this year.
So, Mikai, you know our mission statement is empowering each student for college, career, and life success. When Ornella and I were talking not too long ago, we talked about the importance of feeling, feeling empowered. How do you feel empowered as a student at Princeton?
My teachers actually make me feel like that. You know, they push me. They, you know, Mikai, you could do this. There's no giving up. My teachers never let me give up. So as long as my teachers, you know, give me that extra push, I'll give them my 110% as well. So
Yeah, it's a two-way street. There's no question. Ornella, I'm going to give you the last question to ask this great junior, Mikai Lynn, great student athlete, but really, just a stand-up person making good decisions. Last question. What do you want to ask him? Okay, so Mikai, just like any team, you were talking about practice and all that stuff, this is the first time we're together. So Mikai, you're our very first interview, which may turn into a nationally syndicated talk show. You don't know. Could you imagine that, Ornella?
That'd be amazing.
That would be amazing. So Mikai, what kind of message do you want to leave to your classmates, the teachers, the community of Princeton, just in general? It doesn't have to be necessarily sports related, but it could be. But what's one message you want to leave us as we close out this segment?
One message I want to leave. That's a good question. You know, I haven't really thought. I've gotten asked that after an interview of a game, but I didn't really have a direct answer for it. But one thing I will say is, thank you, Princeton. Princeton kind of built me as a student and as an athlete. Coaches, it started in the classroom. My teachers, coaches, they all just pushed me as far as I could go. You know, no, you're not giving up. Turn this in on time. You know, I'm gonna give you an extra chance, and any chance I ever got, I took it and I ran with it. So I always took advantage of, the extra help or that the extra speech after practice or the extra speech after class. You know, I always took it and put it inside of my my bag. You know, so it kind of just helped me, grow as a person, getting me ready for college. So thank you, Princeton.
Well, and you know what, Mikai, I think the message of thanking, which is, of course, as superintendent, we all want to hear that. But I'm going to unpack what you said a little bit, because it was the fact that you took advantage of the extra opportunities. Isn't that what you said?
Yes, sir.
So I think that's the message, if you don't mind, that's a great one to leave us with, is that, we have lots of opportunities at Princeton and lots of opportunities in life. And we need to take advantage of those so that we can grow and be the best student, the best athlete, the best person we can be.
Yes, sir.
So like they say, you miss all the shots that you don't take. So when you are given an opportunity, it's important to take it. So yeah, I like that message.
That's right. Now, Ornella, I don't know if Mikai can hoop. I think he's a football player, maybe a track guy. Mikai, can you hoop at all?
I tried hooping my freshman year. You know, I couldn't really get into it though. It wasn't really my sport. I'd rather watch it.
Yeah, hey, they had that big draft last night, and it certainly was interesting. But Mikai Lynn, Jr. at Princeton, superstar person who happens to be an unbelievable student athlete as well. Mikai Lynn, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be right back with you in 30 seconds.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's good because then we could splice it up and do whatever. That's even better. Okay. All right, welcome back to Viking Voices of People of Princeton. This is our second segment today, and very excited to welcome legendary teacher, not 15 years. You'll hear his story here in a second. Mr. Dennis Simpson. Mr. Simpson, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Ornella, I don't know if you had the opportunity to have Mr. Simpson in middle school.
Unfortunately, I did not.
Did not. Mr. Simpson is a man about town. On top of the fact that he does an amazing job in the classroom. And Mr. Simpson, instead of me bragging all about all the great work and all the accolades, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the most important part of your day, and that's you working with students and you guys building things and actually developing engineers.
Okay, I'm in my 45th year of teaching. I started out in a field called industrial arts that evolved to industrial technology, then technology education, and today my area is called technology and engineering education. So when you think about the STEM program, the T&E, the technology and engineering, would be the courses I deal with. At the middle school, I'm teaching a course called robotics, and we try to build projects from the ground up. So students have experience with machines and tools and materials such as woods, metals, and plastic. And we build simple projects and advance all the way up to things like sumo bots, where the students can battle each other with their sumo bots that they build.
That, you know, the engaging piece of that is really important, right, Mr. Simpson? You know, the kids, when they're engaged, they're going to not be disruptive. When they're engaged, they're going to learn more. They're going to be more interested in the topic. So for the past couple of years, you've exhibited at the state fair.
Princeton's been a part of the Ohio State Fair since Princeton came into existence. So we've continued that tradition. So we display at the state fair where there's thousands of people walk through and see our projects and exhibits. It gives our students a chance to receive sometimes cash awards through the junior fair, certainly ribbons and plaques. We also display at the Ohio Technology Convention each year. This past year it was in Mentor, Ohio. We also have displayed around the community. So when the Kiwanis have had an arts fair, we presented there. We show things here at school at our Festival of Arts. So we try to get recognition for kids who may not be involved in other things like sports and band and theater.
So if anybody has an opportunity to walk into, once we open things up, hopefully this new normal we're under, the pandemic will end. And, you know, we're facing multiple pandemics, but the specific pandemic of COVID-19 will end soon. But if you walk into the middle school and you walk in the main hallway, you just look to the right, you're going to see a display case with just a very small sample of the great work that's done, as well as the plaques and recognition. So Mr. Simpson, the last couple of years, I think we've been recognized as with third place, maybe even higher than that at the state fair.
At the state fair, we've consistently received the best display plaque, and that's on display. The place where we've won third every year is at our Ohio Technology Convention, and the reason we've won third is we're competing at the high school division. There is not a middle school division, so we've actually beat many high schools in their display.
And thank you for that correction. So best display at the Ohio State Fair and third place against high schools. And that's the thing, you know, Ms. Simpson, 45 years doing this, you know, you see sometimes people, they may get up there in years and they lose that energy, they lose that passion. But Ornella has a great question about what happened this summer.
Burton loves to brag and speak about people's accolades. So I would just like to ask you, because he talked to me a little bit about it, but I want to ask you what you did over the summer.
Well, every summer I try to take on some unique challenge. I've ran marathons through the year, making it to the Boston Marathon. I kayaked the length of the whole Ohio River, which is 1,000 miles. I rode my bicycle all the way across the country from the Pacific to the Atlantic. And 2 years ago, I did 25 flights to become a certified power paraglider pilot. This past summer, I tried something different. I repeated my Ohio River trip, but I wanted to try doing it in a sailboat. So I took my boat out to Pittsburgh, and I'm launching it so that I could tie it up to the marina and come back the next day in a rental car and begin my trip. And there was a young lady asking if she'd take pictures. I said, yeah, go ahead. And she asked me what I was doing. I told her, she said, I'm from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We'd like to do a story. And I told her I didn't think it was that interesting, but the editor called me that night. A reporter met me the next day. And so they did a story. And the next day I wake up and I'm on the front page of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. The story got picked up by the Associated Press and it was printed in newspapers all across the country. I ended up on a radio station in Marietta, Ohio. I ended up in the Pittsburgh Sunday Magazine and on the Spectrum News Network. So where I usually have a couple dozen people follow my travel blog, this year nearly 8,000 people followed what I was doing each day.
Oh my gosh.
That is amazing. Wow. I have one more question to ask you, and it can be a little more introspective. What is one of your favorite lessons?
Actually, I don't have one favorite lesson. I think the unique thing about my area is we can do lessons and build projects, and the projects do something. So if we're studying a little form of elementary trigonometry, we can use the angle of a trajectory and the distance traveled by rockets and then calculate the distance they travel. So the students are really into these little rockets we build or the bigger ones that we launch outside, but they're learning without even realizing it. And we make motors that actually run, we make little robotic projects that actually work. So that really engages the students. And I don't have any one favorite. I think anytime we can come up with a project where students are making something and it does something, they're really turned on to that.
You know, Mr. Simpson, obviously in 45 years, you've impacted thousands of students. And I know you're trying to go and retire and do some additional things, but I will be visiting you to try to get one more year out of you. The great work, and feel free to go 50, Mr. Simpson. I mean, getting to that 50, that milestone, I think we all can agree we want Mr. Simpson for another 5 more years, but if you can only give us one, that'd be great. But Mr. Simpson, we know that teachers change and save lives every day. Who is that one teacher that was in your life that was instrumental?
My one teacher was the year I was a freshman in high school. He was my cross-country coach, and he ended up being my algebra teacher. But in cross-country, I was brand new. I was from the small community in the district, and I went and I practiced, and it got time for the first race. And so he goes to each student, each runner, and he told them what their strategy would be. And when he got to me, he says, Dennis, see if you could just keep up. Which kind of shocked me because I thought I was practicing pretty well. And in the end, I actually finished second place for our team. But ever since then, I've always tried to think, Dennis, just keep up. So a lot of these summer activities I do and the things I do in school, I'm always trying to compensate because I think I'm trying to just keep up and I end up going overboard and doing more than most people my age or in my profession. So that one short little statement really reinforced the quote that almost every teacher knows, and that is that a teacher never knows where their influence ends, a teacher affects eternity.
Yeah, you know, Mr. Simpson, certainly I was not as talented as you are as a runner, but I remember Dick Mann, who was my cross-country coach. He was a legendary track coach in Track Hall of Fame. He always told me that a lot of times in life, people try to just get up the hill. But the secret to success isn't getting up the hill. It's what you do after you get over that. It's pushing off the hill. So you talking about keeping up. Mikai talking about taking advantage of extra opportunities. I think those are unbelievable lessons. And I wish I would have planned both of those. Ornella, it's a pretty great way to end. But Mr. Simpson, any message you want to leave this community that you've given so much to?
Well, I kind of alluded to it a little bit before, that we have groups and courses in schools that reinforce the music kids, the drama kids, the academics, the sports, and the gateway to the future that we have here at school through the Oaks in my program and our STEM programs at the high school really give an opportunity for students that love to build projects, they love to problem solve, they're in the coding, and it gives them a chance to really engage in school and be recognized for their interests.
Well, that's fantastic. And you know, this summer, as you said, that you had 8,000 people following your blog. If we just do some simple math, and when we look at the number of students and families you impacted, it's significantly more than that over a great 45 years of changing and saving lives. So Mr. Simpson, thanks so much for joining us today, and a special thanks for all the great service. And Ornella, we heard it here first. Mr. Simpson's going to go to 50.
50.
50.
I believe
Thank
it.
you, Mr. Simpson. Cut all production so he can't change his mind. All right, we'll be right back with you at Viking Voices, the people of Princeton. Thank you, Mr. Simpson.
Thank you.
Okay, now a lot of COVID questions that you could ask Dr. Jameson. Okay. You ready for the next segment? Okay. Hey, welcome back to Viking Voices, the people of Princeton. Again, I'm here today, first time ever, co-host Ornella Siakam. And you're going to meet Ornella right after this next segment, where we're going to invite Dr. Kevin Jameson. Dr. Jameson is our executive director of human resources, but boy, wait till you hear about his career and all the great experiences he's had. And he's been instrumental during this pandemic for us, the COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Jameson, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Jameson, I know that students have been on the forefront of your mind ever since you decided to go into education. How about Ornella Siakam, a 12th grader? I know you've had some experiences. You've heard us talk about her before. Is she not something special?
Yeah, she's amazing. And I look forward to watching what you do after graduation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yep. So Ornella wants to go into public health.
Yeah.
So what kind of question you want to talk to Dr. Jameson about, who's really kind of leading us in so many ways when it comes to COVID-19 and what we're doing for staff and students?
From the public health aspect, what are some things that you look at in terms of COVID? Because this is a living experience that we are living in the moment now. So what are the things, some of the things that you look at to better the public health of the general public?
Yeah, especially in the light of COVID-19, you know that we all have different experiences with it. But especially for our students, how does COVID-19 intersect with other areas of their life? So whether it's academics or athletics, or even challenges that they may be facing, it impacts students and families differently, but in many ways the same. So for us at Princeton, it's important to understand, especially for our students who have learning challenges, particularly our students who may be learning English in addition to learning academic content, but also our students with special needs. One of the things that we've really focused on is the importance of not only the academic support, but that social emotional learning support. We have a total of about 6 different mental health partners that we collaborate with, who have some level of presence in our buildings or even telehealth. So it's important to make sure that you have a diverse range or an array of services and supports that help you problem solve, mainly because our district is so diverse.
And Dr. Jameson, if I can jump in right now, Ornella and I are 6 feet apart. So if I unfortunately would have COVID, or if Ornella would have COVID, we would not have to quarantine. Can you talk a little bit about some of the like biggest challenges and some of the different protocols we put in place to keep Princeton safe?
So one main protocol that we put in place, and this was really early on in our learnings about COVID and how it impacts us from a health perspective, is the importance of personal protective equipment, and how that really needs to be plentiful and available to staff. So I've worked very closely with our Director of Business and Operations, John Fricke. On one side of the house in his area, he really looks at personal protective equipment and sanitation in our school facilities. On the other side of the house, I really look at those special populations of students and staff who may be more vulnerable to transmission. So we've packaged special PPE packages for our preschool classrooms, as well as our students who have special needs, who also may have medical fragility, and what type of PPE is most important for them. So, really taking a look at and making sure that, again, that we're looking at those diverse needs.
Thank you. Ornella,
The other piece I would add,
please go ahead.
oh, sorry. The other piece I would add is that, as a head of our district wellness committee, this is before the pandemic, we worked really closely with a number of our partners. So specifically Springdale Health Department, Hamilton County Public Health, Mind Peace Cincinnati, which is a mental health organization, as well as the Lincoln Heights Healthcare Connection. So when collaborating with them, it's been very helpful prior to the pandemic to have a communication pathway in place already. So when it comes to situations that arise, whether they're at the building or in the community, as it relates to a COVID case, we have a very clear way to identify what supports we need from them in terms of making sure that we're keeping track of all of the positive cases as well as suspected cases and quarantines.
Thank you, Dr. Jameson. So Ornella, talk a little bit about your schedule as a student. And then Dr. Jameson, can you talk about like the decision to go hybrid and why that was really important? But go ahead, Ornella, talk a little bit about your schedule and what you do.
So I decided to go hybrid this year. So that means I'm in school for 1 week and I'm out of school for another. And at first, during first quarter, it was kind of hard to get used to it, but I feel like it was the best possible thing that Princeton could have done to, work with the COVID restrictions and everything. And I've gotten the hang of it, and waking up at 7 a.m, get on a Zoom class isn't hard anymore. So I think it's really good, and it's been easier to handle this year.
So when you talk about the at-home week, there's still work going on.
Yes, I still have a large workload, especially being an AP IB honors student. I still have a large workload, but it isn't like I'm at home doing nothing.
Okay. So Dr. Jameson, why hybrid? Why not just come back full bore?
Princeton has received a lot of recognition for our decision to go hybrid or remote. Because from the very beginning, one of the important pieces that we wanted to be sure of is that we had opportunities for parent choice and voice in the summer months. We asked actually a couple of different times and made sure that we got input from a wide variety of parents as to the choice to go remote or to go hybrid. And how it benefits us really is that, for the students who are on a hybrid schedule, they have a full week of learning and then a full week of at-home learning. And in that arrangement, it allows us to automatically kind of build in a quarantine time if we have to look at any specific cases that come up. Sometimes we've had cases where a student may be positive, but they are at home during their at-home learning week. So it allows us to really kind of make sure that we are really focused on providing support for at-home learning week, but also being knowledgeable of those cases when they are at home learning and there's a COVID situation. The other piece that is very helpful with going hybrid is just making sure that we have a way of having this kind of smaller population of students that we're working with at one time, physically in presence. So, the fact that about 40% of our student population is remote and the other 60% has been divided into scarlet and gray, it gives us an opportunity to have a third of our students in person and really focus on not only those academic supports, but also focus on the social emotional supports that have to be extended. And then the gray kids come in, and then we do the same thing. And I think the other key factor associated with that decision is that it's allowed us to kind of continue and keep our cases down, and really act quickly when we have a specific situation that comes up.
Well, Dr. Jameson, you've been so instrumental in helping the smooth transition, and you're right. We have a great team. We got great input, and it really has allowed us to kind of forge forward. And while we all know that students need to be in school, schools were built to have students and staff working collaboratively together, learning and growing. And hopefully very soon we'll be able to bring everybody back. But in the meantime, we will continue to make decisions based upon the information we have, and specifically making sure that we protect students like Mikai, who did a great job in the first segment, and Ornella, who's here today, and all their other classmates, pre-K through 12, that are just amazing students that deserve the very best we can give each day. Dr. Jameson, any message you want to leave us with, perhaps maybe a public health announcement or anything else like that?
I think definitely a public health, we're getting ready to approach the Thanksgiving holiday. And, it's very important that this holiday gives us an opportunity to be thankful for the things that we have, and for the connections and relationships that we have. But also understand that this pandemic, one of several, has impacted people very personally. And so it's always important to extend grace and kindness, even in your highest points of frustration. Take a moment and take care of yourself so that you can take care of someone else. So like they tell us on the airplanes, put your oxygen mask on first so that you can then take care of that person who needs assistance. So look at it the same way. When you reach a height of frustration, look for self-care, and then institute that self-care so that you can always have a headspace that allows you to extend grace and kindness, because we don't know how the impact of the coronavirus or the racial injustice situations that we've seen this year has impacted people personally.
Yet another great message to leave us with, making sure we do have self-care. We really need to take care of ourselves first, so we can help others. And as Mr. Simpson said, it was a great message as well about trying to keep up. Now, some people may say, boy, not necessarily the biggest motivational message, but really I look at that as a positive mental attitude. 83 years ago yesterday, my mother was born, and unfortunately, she's no longer with us on earth. But one of the things that she always said was to make sure you have a PMA every day, which is a positive mental attitude. And Dr. Jameson, you certainly have that. Mr. Simpson and his great message as well. And Mikai's message, again, to take advantage of opportunities so you can push yourself to be the very best, because others are going to push you, and you need to be willing to accept it so that you can grow. So Dr. Jameson, thanks so much for joining us. And we're going to be right back with our last part of Viking Voices, the people of Princeton. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back. Viking Voices, the people of Princeton. I'm, of course, Tom Burton, superintendent of Princeton City Schools. And again, this is the third or fourth time I've said it, but it's my distinct honor to have a co-host for the first time. And we're going to do this every single time throughout the course of this year. Next year, we're going to have to recruit some people maybe. But Ornella Siakam, who is such a wonderful young lady, who I first really kind of got big exposure with when we were doing a video entitled "This is Princeton." And some of her words at that point really were very informative to not only myself, but Trisha Roddy, who worked on the video, and many other people. It just resonated with us, like what can happen in life if you take advantage of opportunities that are put in front of you? What can you do in life if you have a mission to change the world? And that is who Ornella Siakam is, an unbelievable senior and someone who, a lot of pressure, Ornella, we do expect you to change the world.
I'm hoping to.
So now why don't you talk a little bit about yourself, how you feel empowered, and we're going to end this in dramatic fashion, but go ahead.
Alrighty. So like Mr. Burton said, I'm a senior at Princeton High School. And first of all, I'm very thankful for this opportunity to be your co-host. And I don't know, this is just perfect for me. I just love it. I love the atmosphere. I know I've been kind of nervous today, but I'm getting used to it, and I know we've got this. And yeah, so one thing that he did mention was about taking opportunities, like Mikai said in an earlier segment. And for me, Princeton gave me the opportunity to fall in love with poetry and fall in love with being able to have your voice heard. And that's a big thing I know that Princeton pushes, is giving students voices, and this is called Viking voices. But yeah, like poetry has allowed me to open myself up and speak about things that I do feel passionate about. And yeah.
So Ornella, yesterday you took part in something with students across the country.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So Mr. Burton gave me the opportunity to actually be a part of a social justice program that they are trying to change the curriculum or change in terms of social justice nationwide with teachers. And I got on the Zoom yesterday, and it was really like powerful to hear what the teachers and the administrators that were on the Zoom had to say. And I feel like it's amazing because it's student led. So students are the ones that are saying, this is what we want to see happen in the schools, and this is what we want to see change. And like I said, it was an amazing opportunity, and I'm still continuing, like it's going to be a continuous thing. So there will be more Zooms where we will get together and talk about the things.
You know, one of our very first Viking Voices, Ornella, we announced that we were part of the League of Innovative Schools. And I talked about there's going to be so many great opportunities. And this is why that program was created yesterday, was through the League of Innovative Schools. And really, you know, we talked about being part of this program. And when all these superintendents were throwing out different ideas, we talked about this space that we created this summer for students to be able to talk about their feelings. Mm-hmm. And you took part in that.
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about the importance of creating space for student voice?
Especially with what happened in the summer with George Floyd, unfortunately, I feel like it was very important to have those uncomfortable conversations. And the space that Princeton provided for us was really I feel like it was really necessary to kind of spill out the emotions, because even through poetry, like if you bottle up those emotions inside, it'll affect you differently at a different time. So those spaces where you can make your voice heard and spill out those raw emotions is very important. And I'm thankful for Princeton for allowing for their students to have that.
So Ornella, we know you want to go into public health.
Yes.
Excuse me. And today, I talked to Jeremy Hassel again. He's the Director of Environmental Services for Hamilton County. He's really excited again. He talked about being able to connect with you at some point and really trying to help to see if there's some opportunities for you to learn and kind of grow. And, you know, while it's great to hear wonderful things about Princeton or about the great teachers we have and administrators, we know that we're certainly not perfect, and I'm the least perfect person around. But we work, really hard to try to make sure that we empower each student for college, career, and life success. So one way of doing this, I feel, is to allow you a little bit of time right now to maybe do a little performance poetry, if that's okay. And we know it's, when you think about poetry, we can maybe just say a poem. Performance poetry is maybe making it come alive and having people feel it. So however you want to do it, if you can give a couple of verses of one of your beautiful performances, and maybe talk a little bit about the award you received last year. Okay. And I'm going to step out of the slide so it'll all be you. You can come right in the middle. All right. This is Siakam Speaks, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, welcome to Siakam Speaks. But so yeah, like I've been doing poetry with Princeton since 8th grade, and I've gotten a few awards for it. I had a poem published in a book, 8th grade, and I got the Buddy Gray Political Award. And last year, I actually won 3rd place in the slam poetry program with this poem. But today, I will be performing a snippet of it. And like Mr. Burton said, this won't be as lively as I usually would do it if it was at a performance, but I'm going to do my best. And here we go. It's titled, To My Future Son. Don't get confused with the true definition of strength. Don't let taking your guard down mean weakness, son. Be vulnerable without regret, son. Your want to protect comes from the many survivors that came before you. And son, in its own simplicity, never allow for any form of toxic masculinity force you to disrespect any individual in your life, son. Life isn't fair. It never has been, and it never will be, son. You're Black. Son, love your skin in its entirety, and no matter how hard it gets, never question why God so generously poured helpless heaps of rich melanin into the mixture that came to be you. But son, your complexion is both a blessing and a curse, tucked neatly in a box topped with a bow, delivered to you at birth. It's a complex matrix you will never escape, but it's yours for the rest of your life. And son, your existence is the result of many generations of resistance. Your ancestors walked so you might one day run. MLK Jr. had a dream that you might one day bring it into realization. Just because they succeeded in suppressing his with a brutal shot doesn't give you any reason why not to chase yours, son. That is a snippet of it. Thank you.
Ornella, we know that you bring so much passion each and every day. And when the horrific instances occurred with Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and the countless other social injustice and racial injustice issues that we felt, and I've talked about this pandemic we've been under for centuries. That poem, every time I've heard a couple times, you know that, it gets to me because of the blessing and a curse line. Being a very strong Black female that's going to change the world, as we know. We're going to speak it, and it's going to happen.
Speak it into existence.
Just know that the work that you do and your voice, and if it's okay with you, at the end of every Viking Voices, we're going to give you some time.
That'll be amazing.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, you heard a couple things here today. Excited. We're going to try to work with Mr. Simpson and get him for some more years. Boy, what a dynamic educator he is. But Ornella Siakam is going to Siakam Speaks at the end of every episode of Viking Voices. And so make sure you stay tuned, because Ornella is going to give thought-provoking words, and from the words of a student, authentic. It's not going to be ostracized or whatever. It's going to be what's in your heart, and we're really excited to hear what you're going to come up with.
I'm excited too. I'm excited to have a platform to have my voice heard, and it could be the face for voices of many other Princeton students in Princeton around. So I'm really excited for the opportunity.
Well, Ornella, co-host of award-winning Viking Voices of People of Princeton, thanks so much. We'll see you soon. And for everybody else out there, as we always say, we end everything with, as always, go Vikes. But this is what I want to say before I say that. We need to mask up, socially distance, do the right things so that we could end this one of the pandemics. The other pandemics we're faced, we have a lot more work to do when you think about the unfortunate circumstances that have led with COVID, the major increases that we've seen. We're going to continue to keep our kids and staff and educational community safe here. And just know that if we do the little things now, the big things will take care of themselves. Thanks again for joining us on another edition of Viking Voices, the People of Princeton. And of course, as always, go Vikes.